November 17th, 1942. At a windswept testing ground outside Tripoli, Libya, Oberst Ludwig Hartmann clenched the steering wheel of a captured American vehicle. His knuckles were white beneath his Africa Corps gloves. The diary entry he composed that night held thoughts that would have triggered an immediate investigation by his superiors. This machine contradicts everything we believed about American engineering. How could a nation Germany dismissed as industrially backward produce something so remarkably capable? Through 6 months of brutal desert warfare, Hartmann had watched his unit's Kübelwagens falter in the unforgiving terrain, while captured American Jeeps performed feats that seemed impossible for a vehicle weighing under 2,500 pounds. It featured four-wheel drive that actually functioned, an engine delivering 60 horsepower, where German equivalents struggled with 25, and ground clearance that mocked obstacles that completely stopped German vehicles' travel. This moment would catalyze one of the most profound technical reassessments in Wehrmacht history. The truth was delivered not by propaganda or intelligence reports, but by German engineering officers testing a machine their ideology insisted could not exist. The revelation had begun 6 months prior, on May 12, 1942, when elements of the 21st Panzer Division captured their first intact American Jeep near Gazala. British forces had been using them since late 1941 under Lend-Lease, but this was the Wehrmacht's first chance to examine the vehicle closely. The officers who ordered the vehicle sent to the rear for evaluation were following standard procedure for captured enemy equipment. What they could not have predicted was that this single vehicle would begin dismantling German assumptions about American industrial capability. Among the first to inspect the captured machine was Hauptmann Friedrich Müller, a mechanical engineering graduate from the Technical University of Munich who had designed civilian automobiles for Opel before the war. His initial report, discovered decades later in German military archives, provides historians with the most detailed technical assessment of the Jeep from a German perspective. The vehicle reached the improvised testing facility near Tobruk on May 19, 1942. German mechanics had already performed basic maintenance, replacing fuel and checking fluid levels. They reported the vehicle had approximately 15,000 kilometers on the odometer and showed signs of hard use but remained fully functional. Müller's first observation cut through the military formality. The Americans have achieved something remarkable. This vehicle weighs 1,114 kilograms empty, yet it possesses capabilities we associate with machines weighing half again as much. The four-wheel drive system operates with a simplicity our engineers insisted was impossible. The testing began with basic measurements and documentation. German technicians photographed every component, measured every dimension, and sketched every mechanical system. The Willys MB featured an 80-inch wheelbase, 62-inch width, and could carry 800 pounds off-road or 1,200 pounds on improved surfaces. But the numbers alone couldn't capture the vehicle's remarkable nature. Oberleutnant Hans Weber, a former racing driver who competed at the Nürburgring before the war, took the Jeep on its first field trials. His report contained technical observations mixed with something approaching disbelief. I drove the vehicle across terrain that would have required our troops to dismount and push a Kübelwagen. The Jeep simply drove through. The four-wheel drive engages smoothly. The engine, a 2.2-liter inline four-cylinder producing 60 horsepower, delivers power that feels entirely disproportionate to its modest specifications. The ground clearance measures 8.75 inches, more than adequate for desert conditions. The short overhangs front and rear mean the vehicle can climb obstacles our own vehicles cannot attempt. German engineers focused intensely on the four-wheel drive system. The Kübelwagen relied on rear-wheel drive only, compensated by lightweight and a limited slip differential. The Type 87 Kommandierwagen possessed four-wheel drive, but weighed and cost significantly more to produce. The Jeep achieved four-wheel drive at a price point and weight that German planners had insisted was impossible. Stabsfeldwebel Kurt Zimmermann, a factory mechanic from Stuttgart before conscription, disassembled the transfer case, and documented every component. His report revealed admiration mixed with professional frustration. The transfer case allows the driver to select two-wheel drive high range, four-wheel drive high range, or four-wheel drive low range. The mechanism is robust, well-engineered, and requires minimal maintenance. We have been told that American manufacturing emphasized quantity over quality. This component proves otherwise. The Dana 25 front axle and Dana 27 rear axle, both featuring 4.88 to 1 gear ratios, demonstrated engineering choices that German technicians found instructive. The axles featured no advanced metallurgy or revolutionary design concepts. What they possessed was functional elegance. Every component served its purpose without unnecessary complexity. When Oberst Hartmann drove the Jeep on November 17th, he was following a testing protocol developed over 6 months of evaluation. German engineers had subjected the captured vehicle to trials that would have destroyed lesser machines. They drove it through soft sand at speeds that bogged down German vehicles. They climbed dunes that Kübelwagens could not attempt. They loaded it with 1,000 pounds of equipment and drove cross-country for hours. The Jeep performed flawlessly. Hartmann's assessment that evening captured the cognitive dissonance this created. We have been taught that Americans are mechanically incompetent, that their industry produces inferior goods, that their engineering capabilities cannot match ours. Yet this vehicle, mass-produced in factories we dismiss as primitive, demonstrates capabilities that exceed our most carefully crafted machines. The engine cooling system particularly impressed German observers. Kübelwagens featured air-cooled engines that eliminated radiator vulnerability but struggled with sustained high-speed operation in hot climates. The Jeep's water-cooled engine, supplied by a simple radiator and fan system, maintained consistent operating temperatures even under brutal desert conditions. Hauptmann Müller conducted sustained stress tests, driving the Jeep at maximum throttle for extended periods. The engine temperature remained stable, with no overheating and no loss of power. The cooling system, which our engineers insisted would be a fatal weakness in desert conditions, functions perfectly. The transmission drew particular attention. The 3-speed manual gearbox with a floor-mounted shifter offered nothing revolutionary, but it provided bulletproof reliability. German mechanics who disassembled the unit found components manufactured to tight tolerances, properly heat-treated, and designed for ease of maintenance. Feldwebel Otto Krebs, who worked at the Mercedes-Benz factory in Sindelfingen before the war, wrote in his technical report that the transmission could be completely disassembled and reassembled with basic tools in under 3 hours. Our own vehicles require specialized equipment and trained technicians for major repairs. The Americans designed this machine to be maintained by soldiers in the field. The electrical system provoked debate among German engineers. The 6-volt system seemed primitive compared to German 12-volt systems, yet it functioned reliably, powered all necessary equipment, and simplified manufacturing. Oberleutnant Weber noted, "The Americans use heavier gauge wire to compensate for lower voltage. This requires more copper but eliminates the complex voltage regulation our systems require. The result is effective engineering through practical solutions." By December 1942, German forces in North Africa had captured approximately 40 Jeeps in various conditions. Many were pressed into immediate service by capturing units, but 6 were sent to Germany for comprehensive evaluation at the Army Weapons Office testing facility near Berlin. The vehicles arrived in late January 1943 aboard transport aircraft, accompanied by detailed reports from Africa Corps engineers. The German testing represented the most thorough technical analysis any captured Allied vehicle received during the war. Engineers from Volkswagen, Daimler-Benz, and Otto Union examined every aspect of the Jeep's design and construction. What they discovered challenged fundamental assumptions about American manufacturing capability. Dr. Ferdinand Porsche himself examined one of the captured Jeeps in February 1943. The designer of the Kübelwagen spent 3 hours inspecting the American vehicle, asking detailed questions and taking measurements. His conclusion, recorded in a memo to the Army Weapons Office, acknowledged American engineering achievement while defending his own design choices. The American vehicle demonstrates admirable engineering within different design parameters. They accepted greater weight and complexity to achieve four-wheel drive capability. Our Kübelwagen optimizes different priorities, achieving similar off-road performance through lighter weight and careful design. Each approach has merit. However, if I were designing a military vehicle today with knowledge of both approaches, I would seriously consider four-wheel drive, despite the additional complexity. The comprehensive German testing revealed specifications that Wehrmacht planners found sobering. The Jeep's Go Devil engine produced 60 horsepower and 105 foot-pounds of torque from 134 cubic inches. The Kübelwagen's 1.1-liter engine generated 25 horsepower and 50 foot-pounds from similar displacement. American engineers extracted more than double the power from comparable displacement through overhead valve design, higher compression ratios, and better carburation. German test drivers reported the Jeep could reach 65 miles per hour on good roads, compared to the Kübelwagen's 50-mile-per-hour maximum. More importantly, the Jeep maintained higher average speeds over rough terrain because four-wheel drive allowed sustained power delivery where two-wheel drive vehicles had to slow for traction. Hauptmann Müller's final technical report, submitted in March 1943, contained conclusions that contradicted official narratives about American industrial capability. We must acknowledge that American engineering has achieved remarkable results through methodologies different from ours. Where we emphasize precision, they emphasize durability. Where we design for specific conditions, they design for versatility. The result is a vehicle that performs its mission more effectively than our equivalents in most circumstances. The Jeep's payload capacity impressed German logisticians. Official ratings specified 800 pounds off-road, but field testing demonstrated the vehicle routinely carried 1,000 pounds or more. German quartermasters calculated that 3 Jeeps could transport the cargo of 2 Kübelwagens while consuming comparable fuel. The fuel capacity of 15 gallons provided a range of approximately 300 miles, adequate for extended operations without refueling. This matched Kübelwagen range despite the American vehicle's significantly greater power output. The versatility of the Jeep particularly impressed German observers. They watched captured vehicles perform roles impossible for Kübelwagens. A mounting bracket on the hood accepted machine guns in anti-aircraft configuration. The flat rear deck could mount communications equipment, stretchers for casualty evacuation, or additional cargo. Pintle hooks front and rear enabled towing of trailers or other vehicles. Feldwebel-Krebs noted, "The Americans designed one vehicle to fulfill multiple roles, while we develop specialized vehicles for each task. This represents industrial efficiency we cannot match. Their single design serves purposes that require 3 different vehicles in our inventory." Technical manual and comparative tests. By spring 1943, German forces had captured enough Jeeps that the Army Weapons Office published a technical manual providing German troops with operation and basic maintenance instructions for the captured American vehicles. The manual contained detailed mechanical drawings, maintenance schedules, and operational guidance. It instructed German troops that captured Jeeps should be sent to rear areas for evaluation when practical, but units could retain them for immediate use if needed. Oberleutnant Weber, now assigned to the testing facility in Germany, contributed to the manual's preparation. His section on driving techniques revealed how thoroughly German engineers had studied the Jeep. The four-wheel drive system allows the vehicle to maintain momentum through obstacles that would stop rear-wheel drive vehicles. However, the vehicle's high center of gravity relative to its track width creates rollover risk on severe side slopes. The low-range four-wheel drive delivers exceptional torque but limits speed to walking pace. Use low range for severe obstacles, steep grades, or heavy loads. The Germans conducted direct comparison tests between captured Jeeps and Kübelwagens throughout 1943. The results, documented in classified reports now available in German military archives, revealed the strengths and weaknesses of both designs. In soft sand, the Jeep's four-wheel drive provided a clear advantage. It could maintain forward momentum where Kübelwagens bogged down. In mud, the Jeep dominated completely. The four-wheel drive delivered continuous traction while Kübelwagens spun their rear wheels. In snow and ice, both vehicles performed adequately, but the Jeep's four-wheel drive again provided advantages. On hard surfaces and paved roads, the Kübelwagen offered a more comfortable ride due to softer suspension tuning. For climbing steep grades, the Jeep's low-range four-wheel drive proved superior. German tests demonstrated the Jeep could climb 60% grades under load, approximately 31 degrees. The Kübelwagen managed perhaps 40% grades, approximately 22 degrees, before traction or power limitations intervened. The fuel consumption comparison revealed interesting results. Under identical driving conditions on paved roads, Kübelwagens achieved better mileage due to lighter weight and lower power output. However, off-road, where vehicles operated at higher engine speeds and lower ground speeds, the Jeep's greater power allowed it to maintain momentum more efficiently. Overall fuel consumption in combat conditions proved roughly similar. Perhaps the most significant finding involved reliability and maintainability. German mechanics tracked repair requirements for both captured Jeeps and equivalent Kübelwagens over thousands of kilometers of operation. The results surprised German commanders who expected American vehicles to prove fragile. Stabsfeld-Weibel-Zimmermann's maintenance logs revealed that Jeeps required approximately 30% less maintenance time per 1,000 kilometers than Kübelwagens. Production disparity and psychological impact. German intelligence services took notice of these technical assessments. Reports filtering back from North Africa, Italy, and later France consistently described the Jeep as a remarkably capable vehicle. The Abwehr attempted to determine American production numbers and capabilities. What they learned was even more disturbing than the vehicle's technical capabilities. By mid-1943, German intelligence estimated that American factories were producing Jeeps at rates exceeding 500 per day. Willys Overland and Ford Motor Company together operated production lines that could build a complete Jeep every few minutes. The total production numbers defied German comprehension. The Americans were manufacturing more Jeeps monthly than Germany had produced Kübelwagens in the entire war. Oberst Hartmann, promoted and transferred to training duties in Germany after recovering from wounds, saw captured intelligence reports in late 1943. His diary entry that evening reflected the implications. "We face an enemy who can mass-produce vehicles of exceptional quality. Our ideology insists Americans are inferior engineers, yet their Jeep outperforms our equivalent in most conditions. Our propaganda claims American industry emphasizes quantity over quality, yet they produce in a single month what takes us a year." The versatility Americans built into the Jeep's design particularly concerned German military planners. A single vehicle type fulfilled roles requiring multiple German vehicle types. This simplified logistics, reduced maintenance requirements, and maximized industrial efficiency. German officers who commanded armored units across multiple theaters recognized the Jeep's impact on Allied operations. The vehicle was everywhere, serving as a reconnaissance platform, communications hub, command car, ambulance, weapons carrier, cargo transport, and artillery spotter. This versatility overwhelmed German logistics systems designed around specialized vehicles. German special operations showed particular interest in captured Jeeps. SS Obersturmbannführer Otto Skorzeny's Panzerbrigade 150, formed for the Ardennes offensive in December 1944, specifically sought captured Jeeps for infiltration operations. Skorzeny understood that Jeeps were so ubiquitous in American rear areas that they attracted no attention. By 1944, with Germany on the defensive across all fronts, captured Jeeps became prized possessions among German units. Standing orders required captured vehicles be sent to rear areas for evaluation, but commanders routinely ignored these directives. The going rate among German troops for trading captured equipment reportedly valued one Jeep as equivalent to 2 Kübelwagens. This represented an honest assessment by the vehicle's end users of their relative capabilities. Hauptmann Friedrich Müller, whose initial report in 1942 began the German technical evaluation of the Jeep, survived the war and immigrated to the United States in 1951. In a 1968 interview for an automotive history project, he reflected on his wartime experiences. The Jeep represented an approach to engineering that contradicted what we were taught. German engineering emphasized optimization. The Americans built with generous margins, accepting slight weight increases to achieve durability. Under laboratory conditions, our approaches produced superior results. Under combat conditions, American approaches proved more successful. The Jeep could be repaired by soldiers with basic tools, operated by drivers with minimal training, and produced in vast quantities. These characteristics actually represented a superior understanding of military requirements. Germany produced approximately 50,000 Kübelwagens during the entire war. The United States produced over 640,000 Jeeps, about 360,000 by Willys Overland and 280,000 by Ford. This 12-to-1 production advantage represented only part of the disparity. American Jeeps also served with British, Canadian, Australian, Free French, Soviet, and Chinese forces under Lend-Lease. Some 50,000 went to the Soviet Union alone, more than Germany's total Kübelwagen production. The sheer scale of American production combined with the vehicle's genuine technical capability created an impact far beyond mere transportation. Every German soldier who encountered American forces faced the psychological reality that their enemy possessed unlimited quantities of vehicles superior to their own equivalents. Oberleutnant Weber, who conducted the initial driving tests in North Africa, later participated in combat actions against American forces in Italy. His post-war testimony described the psychological impact. "We could destroy American vehicles, but more always appeared. For every Jeep we knocked out, 10 more arrived. Our own vehicles, when lost, could rarely be replaced. This disparity affected every tactical decision." Legacy and the final assessment. The German post-war technical analysis of Allied equipment, conducted by former Wehrmacht officers working for American military intelligence, rated the Jeep as one of the 5 most significant pieces of equipment in the Allied victory. The assessment noted that the Jeep's combination of capability, reliability, and production scale made it uniquely valuable. General Dwight Eisenhower later wrote in his memoirs that senior Allied officers regarded the Jeep as one of the 5 pieces of equipment most vital to success in Europe and North Africa, alongside the C-47 Dakota transport aircraft, the 2.5-ton truck, the bulldozer, and the landing craft. The Jeep's versatility enabled it to fulfill roles far beyond its original reconnaissance vehicle design. German intelligence documented Jeeps carrying mounted machine guns, recoilless rifles, and even small artillery pieces. They served as ambulances evacuating wounded, delivered ammunition to isolated units, provided transportation for officers, and carried communications equipment. This adaptability multiplied the vehicle's value. In December 1944, when SS commandos in captured American uniforms and Jeeps infiltrated American lines during the Battle of the Bulge, American forces became temporarily suspicious of all Jeeps carrying unusual passenger loads. Skorzeny's men had been instructed to carry 4 men per Jeep, matching German practice. American practice typically assigned 2 men per Jeep, sometimes 3, rarely 4. Several German commando teams were captured because they failed to understand this subtle aspect of American military culture. The post-war period saw former German engineers who had evaluated captured Jeeps emigrate to the United States and enter American industry. Hauptmann Müller joined Kaiser Frazer Corporation in 1952 and contributed to early Kaiser Jeep designs. Other German engineers who had examined captured American vehicles during the war found employment with General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. But in the specific case of light military vehicles, the Jeep represented the superior solution. Its combination of capability, reliability, and production efficiency established a template that influenced military vehicle design worldwide for decades. The Soviet Gaz 67, introduced in 1943, clearly showed Jeep influence. Post-war, numerous nations developed Jeep-inspired light vehicles for their military forces. By the time of Hauptmann Müller's death in 1978, the Jeep had evolved through multiple military and civilian iterations, but its fundamental design remained recognizable. The aged veteran, in correspondence with American military historians, researching German evaluation of Allied equipment, reflected on what the Jeep had represented. We recognized by 1943 that we were losing the war. The Jeep symbolized why. It was not the most sophisticated vehicle, not the most powerful, not the most elegant. It was simply the most effective at accomplishing its mission. The Americans understood that winning wars required building thousands of good vehicles, not hundreds of perfect vehicles. The Jeep was the visible manifestation of industrial philosophies that we could not match. Every German soldier who saw one knew that our enemy possessed resources and capabilities that exceeded ours. The captured Jeep tested by German engineers in North Africa began as a technical curiosity. It became a symbol of why Germany could not win the war. Sophisticated design meant nothing when simpler designs proved more reliable under combat conditions. Ideological certainty about American incompetence meant nothing when American vehicles outperformed German equivalents in direct comparison. The comprehensive German technical evaluation of the Jeep, conducted by competent engineers, documented capabilities that contradicted propaganda. The reports German officers like Hartmann, Müller, Weber, and Zimmermann wrote established that American engineering had achieved remarkable results. In the final analysis, the story of German officers' testing captured Jeep's documents one of the most significant technical assessments of the war. Competent engineers, trained in German technical universities, examined an American vehicle and recognized excellence. Their honest technical assessments, documented in reports that survived the war, provide unique insight into the moment when German military professionals recognized the truth. They faced an enemy whose industrial capacity and engineering competence far exceeded their own. The Jeep was proof they could touch, drive, and measure. A small vehicle that represented a vast truth about the war they were losing.